Hello everyone. Good evening. Are you all there? Hi CC-Pur. Hi Presidency. Good afternoon Temenglong. Good evening Shillong. Yes children. Are you all there? Yes, are you all there? Okay. So what did we do in the last class? Have you revised the topic? Shillong, haven't seen any response from you people. Are you there? Yes, Shillong. Okay. Good evening, Kohima Center. Yes. Yes, children. Shillong, who's there at the typing? Ask somebody to sit there. Good afternoon, Senapati. Everyone is present? Wow. After a long time. Hi, everyone. Say hi, Shalom. I'm waving at you. I can see only one person waving at me. Is that Lisa? Good. Yes, Lisa, how are you now? Seeing you after a long time. Al, D, how are you all? I've been seeing only the boys. I've seen the girls after so long. All doing great? Lisa, are you okay now? Hi, Temenglong. Lisa, are you doing fine? I came to know that you were not well. Okay now? Is Lisa there or not? Okay, she's there. Recovering. Okay. Okay. May you have a speedy recovery. So cool. Thank you, Presidency. Fine. So today we are going to do the rest of the topic. Basically, we are going to start with the topic of sexual reproduction in flowers. But before that, we have to complete the this topic. We were left with this remaining part now. The benefits and advantages and disadvantages of this asexual reproduction. So let's start with that. Okay, yeah. Okay, so we discussed till tissue culture, right? And now we have to discuss the advantages, I mean the merits and the demerits of asexual reproduction. Let me just give you a brief for all those who are not there. We were studying the asexual reproduction. We have started the topic of reproduction in the organisms. There are two kinds of reproduction, asexual and sexual. Asexual reproduction involves single parent, and in sexual reproduction there are two parents involved in the reproduction. Till now we were discussing, we were talking about asexual reproduction. There are different methods of asexual reproduction. For example, budding, binary fission, fragmentation, regeneration, vegetative propagation, and spore formation. Asexual reproduction always produce genetically identical offsprings. That means the offsprings that are produced by asexual reproduction, they are exactly identical, exactly similar to their parents and their siblings, because there is no variation in the genetic information. Okay. Then we've seen different methods. In last class we discussed about vegetative propagation and spore formation. All those who have missed the class, I request them to please watch the videos and try not to miss the class until and unless it is a genuine reason, okay? Because if you miss one class, it is difficult for you to understand what is going on in the next class. All the topic that we are going to start today is different, and there's not much connection with the previous topic, so you'll be able to understand it. But try not to miss the classes, all of you, okay? Fine. So let's see the merits and the demerits. If we see the merits, the plus sign means the merits, that is the advantages of the asexual reproduction, and the minus sign is showing the disadvantages of the asexual reproduction. If we talk about the advantages, of course, the first advantages is that when there is a situation when there is only a single parent which can survive, so obviously asexual reproduction has a benefit over sexual reproduction, because it enables organism to mate without a partner. A single organism can produce the progeny. Then it enables some organisms to rapidly reproduce a large number of uniform offspring. For example, if I talk about bacteria reproduce very fast and at a large quantity. For example, in like 20 minutes it can produce 200, 400 bacteria. Like it reproduces very fast. Okay. Then offsprings are genetically identical to the parents that we have discussed. Any method of asexual reproduction, be it any method, the common thing is that they all will produce the offsprings which are genetically identical to their parents and their offsprings also. Fine. Then the last advantage is the less energy is utilized, of course, as compared to the sexual reproduction. Let's see the disadvantages now, which are many, of course. Since there is, the offsprings are identical and there is no genetic variation, the organism will have less chance of survival. Now, why is that? For example, if, the evolution, I always tell you, we are going to study about this chapter on heredity and evolution. What happens is, if the environment is changing, according to the changing environment, there is a change in the genetic DNA copying also, and some changes are brought up in the organism. For example, I tell you that you must have observed this thing. Initially, when all-outs used to kill the mosquitoes, right? Initially, mosquitoes were very easily to be killed by these all-outs. But what is happening now? They have developed resistance. It's not, if you switch on all-out, the mosquitoes do not get killed. Why that happens? Because along with the, we are using methods, these mosquitoes are also developing some changes in them. They are developing methods to, they're developing variation in them to not to be killed by these mosquitoes. Similarly, whenever there is change in environment and the organisms which produce sexually by sexual reproduction, they show some variation which may be beneficial, which may not be beneficial. But if it is beneficial, to which species it is beneficial, that species will have better chance of survival. For example, if I give you this example, we are talking about the mosquitoes only. Which mosquitoes have those kind of variation that they produce some toxin in their body, which makes them resistant to these all-out toxin that is released. So this variation is beneficial to them. They will not be killed by them. All those who will develop this variation, that will be beneficial. And for example, if a variation comes like that in a mosquito, they develop some kind of thing that they become more perceptive to these all-out. Okay, something developed in their body that they get attracted to these stuff. That variation is not beneficial. So variation may be beneficial or not, but if it is, they have the scope of better survival. So this is only possible in sexual reproduction, because in asexual reproduction there is no genetic variation until and unless there is some external factor like mutation is involved. Okay, so this is the biggest disadvantage for asexual reproduction. Then another is, just imagine if there is mutation. What is mutation? Let me tell you, mutation is because of radiation, like radiation or radioactive materials. Mutation is a phenomena by which there is change in the direct DNA content of an individual. For example, you must be knowing that UV radiation causes skin cancers. Or like if there is you must be knowing about Madame Curie, who discovered about the radioactivity. She actually died because of radioactivity, because radioactive materials or the metals, they cause change in your DNA and they basically lead to cancers. Okay, they change their cellular information and everything. They lead to basically cancer. So these mutations are the external factor which can bring some change in the DNA content of asexual reproduction. And for just matter, just think that if asexually reproducing organism will have a mutation and that resulted in some kind of a disease in a asexual reproducing organism. Now, since if there will be few mutation in future, only then it is possible, then the change will come in the future generation. Otherwise, if a disease is being inculcated by mutation in one generation of a asexually reproducing organism, it will pass on to the coming future generations. Why? Because we have learned then in asexual reproduction there is no genetic variation. If one feature is added to one generation, it will keep on passing to the another generation. On the other hand, if we talk about sexual reproduction, for example, if there is one parent, one generation is having one disease, there is a possibility, there is a very big possibility, then in next generation that disease may be present or not present. Maybe there is variation. Maybe that doesn't happen in the very future generation. That may happen after 10 to 15 years. The disease may not be present in them. Okay, but in asexual reproduction, it will be only possible if mutation, and mutation is not happening very commonly. Okay, we are going under this radiation. That doesn't happen very commonly. They just reproduce by asexual method, so the features are keep on just copying the same. There is no variation. There is no change. Is it clear to all of you, children? The advantages and disadvantages of asexual reproduction, merits and demerits. Merits mean the advantages and demerits. Okay, it's clear to Shillong. Rest of the centers, is it clear to you, children? It is clear, then we'll be starting with, okay, it's clear to CC-Per. Others, please reply, then we'll be going ahead. We are going to, what is not clear, Kohima Center? Which point is not clear to you, children? Just tell me the point which is not clear. Okay, Kohima Center, please tell me your camera port number. I'll explain the merits and demerits. Just tell your camera port number. Okay, Kohima Center, children, please tell your camera port number. Till then, I'm explaining merits and demerits again. Merits is you have learned the entire asexual reproduction process, so it's very easy for you to understand. It's just that merits are that they do not need another partner. They are not dependent on another partner for the reproduction, and they can reproduce very fast. Okay, again, that is again because very less energy is utilized. They reproduce very fast, and they produce a large progeny in a very short time span. Okay, and the offsprings are genetically identical, which is a merit also and a demerit also. Why it is a demerit? That if due to some reason, if one progeny, one generation has some disease, then that will be copied, that will be transferred to the other generation as well, since there is no variation involved in them. Why there is no variation? I have told you, because there is only single parent involved. So single parent DNA is being copied, so there is no variation involved. Variation will only be there when we have two different kinds of DNA, that is from two different parents, then only variation is possible. If there is no variation, for example, if there is change in the environment, because they do not show any change, it's just like that. You just have to understand like that. You must have heard in philosophical terms also that change is very necessary. Change is constant. If you like we are living in the world of internet. We are using internet. Like if somebody says that some say that I'm old school. I don't want to use internet. Books are the best thing, and you should search everything from the books. So it's like you're not changing with the change. Today's generation is saying that you need to use the computers, you need to use the internet, it will help you. Why you want to just think it as a misuse? If you will stick to the old school thoughts that no, I just want to stick to the old methods, then you are not changing, you are not bringing variation in yourself, then your survival, your winning any competition or chances of survival over here, we mean by that we're talking about some competition or something like that. If one person says that no, I will just I'll not do the smart work, I'll just do the hard work, I'll read the entire book and then give the competitive exam. Other person think that why should I take so much pain if there is so much content, if somebody is giving me some content, somebody is giving me notes, somebody is giving me questions. So humans are not evolved from monkeys. No. Okay, so this is variation. Like with change, you are changing yourself. You are bringing variation. If you bring variation, your chances of survival is better. But asexual reproduction do not have this scope because they cannot have variation. Because for variation, there are two parents to be necessarily present. Is it clear, Kohima Center? Please, Kohima Center, please please share your camera port number. Shalom, humans are not evolved from monkeys. Okay. Monkeys definitely not. There might be confusion that we might have evolved from chimpanzee, although we have not evolved from chimpanzees as well. Chimpanzees and humans, we have some different, we have some common ancestors, but we have not evolved from chimpanzees also. And monkey definitely not. Okay? They are mammals, a lot of mammals. We are mammals, so we have a lot of common things, but we have not evolved from them. Fine. Any other doubt? Kohima Center, please share your camera port number. You haven't shared that yet. Are you able to see me, Kohima Center? Ape are also, okay, you're talking about the Planet of the Apes movie. Is it like that, Shalom? They're also one of the species. Like chimpanzees, there are apes also. Okay, they're different species. They're not monkeys. Monkeys are different species, chimpanzees are different species, and apes are different species. They look quite similar, they look quite they have similarities, but they're not the same species, they're the different species. You have seen the movie Planet of the Apes, Shalom? Have you seen that movie, Planet of the Apes? That's why I'm talking about all these things. It was believed that monkeys may take over the world over the humans, but that's not happening because I don't think so. There's anybody scarier and harmful than a human being. An animal still may not be that harmful than a human being. Don't you think so? No, nobody is more harmful than a social animal human being. Fine, okay, let's go ahead. Okay. I guess it belongs to chimpanzee. Actually, King Kong, these, okay, don't ask movie questions. Okay, that's hypothetical things. They're not absolutely true things, so do not believe it. Yeah, they do, but not the way it was being shown in the movie. Not like that. Okay. Come on, let's just start this. Let's revise what we have studied, and after you will give the answers, we'll understand how much you have revised. Okay, let's do a recall test. All of you, the questions are going to be appeared on your screens. Yes. Answer for question number 1, all of you. Just question number 1. Fine? We'll do one by one. Organisms such as hydra and yeast reproduce by the process of option A, budding, option B, vegetative propagation, option C, spore formation, option D, fragmentation. Okay. Shillong says option A, Sisipur says option A, Kohima option A, Temenglong option A, Senapati option A. Very good, all of you. Very good. Presidency, come on, answer, children. Wait, Sisipur, wait. Let Presidency answer. Presidency, are you there? Yes. Very good, all of you. Yes, the answer for question number 1 is option A, budding. We have discussed hydra and yeast both reproduce by budding. If I just wait, Shillong, wait. If I just recall what is budding, budding is in which an organism shows an outgrowth on its body. Okay, then an outgrowth grows while attached to the parent body. When it becomes mature, it just detaches from the parent body. The outgrowth is called as bud. Okay. Question number 2. The process in which a number of germ cells of the multicellular organisms are contained within a hard shell. Hard shell, or I can call it as resistant wall, which breaks in presence of suitable condition. That is, answer for question number 2 first of all. Answer for question number 2. I'm repeating the question. The process in which a number of germ cells of a multicellular organisms are contained within a hard shell, which breaks in presence of suitable condition. We can call it as a hard shell, or we can also call it as the resistant wall. If the bell rings, resistant wall. Which type of reproduction is this? Vegetative propagation, budding, spore formation, or multiple fission? Okay. I have multiple answers. Shillong says answer for question number 2 is option C. Okay. Kohima says option C. Sisipur says option C. Presidency C. Temenglong D. Senapati C. Okay. Yes, absolutely correct. It's option C. Temenglong, if you remember, I told you in case of spore formation, the advantage of reproduction by spore formation is that they produce a resistant wall around them when the conditions are unfavorable. When the conditions become favorable, this wall, this hard shell breaks, the spores come out and they germinate into the whole new organism. Okay, in vegetative propagation, nothing such happens, neither in budding. Multiple fission, there is no hard shell is over there. Over there, a cell divides into multiple parts. First the multiple nucleus, and then it surrounds the multiple cytoplasm, and then the multiple cells are formed. Okay, Temenglong, the answer for question number 2 is option C. Okay. Question number 3. Bryophyllum produces dash that grows into an organism. Okay. Option A, spores. Option B, buds. Option C, cutting. Option D, none of these. Okay, Shillong says option B. Kohima says option B. Sisipur say option B. Temenglong say option B. Presidency and Senapati, your answer is remaining. Okay. Yes, children, absolutely correct. If you remember, I told you they're called adventitious buds. Okay? If you remember, wait. They are called adventitious. Okay, I'm going to write it somewhere else. Yes, they're just not the buds. Their name is adventitious buds. Okay? Fine? Okay. Yes, Presidency, absolutely correct. Let's see the next question. In tissue culture, new plants are grown by removing tissue cell from the growing tip of a plant and placing them into water, salt solution, soil or growth medium. Answer for question number 4, all of you. In tissue culture, new plants are grown by removing tissues, cells from the growing tip of a plant and placing them in water, salt solution, soil or growth medium. Sisipur says option D, Shillong says option D, Tamenglong says option D. Kohima says option D. Presidency and Senapati, you are being late. Quickly answer, very easy question. Shillong, be sure and be confident. Yes, Presidency. Okay. The answer for question number 4 is growth medium. Senapati, Shillong, why are you being confused in this? Senapati, yes, you too. I told you in tissue culture, we grow in the, first we grow in this laboratory. So, in laboratory, we need a growth medium. We do not put them in the soil. Initially, we prepare them in the growth, this laboratory. After that, we have just got that tentacles and everything that saplings are being formed. After that, we can transfer it to the soil. But initially, for that sapling to grow, we need the growth medium only. So, option D is absolutely correct. Okay, Senapati Center, Shillong. Why were you being confused? You said option D, then you changed your answer. You were confused between C and D. Senapati, is it clear? It's option D. Rest of you have given the answer. Fine, no problem. It's option D. I think they have not attended the class. That's why they might be confused. It's option D. Okay, growth medium. Answer for question number 5. The process in which shoot from one plant is attached to the stem. It should be root. It should not be shoot. Okay. Yes. It should be root from one plant is attached to the stem of another plant is known as cutting, grafting, layering or tissue culture. Yes. Shillong says option C, Kohima says option C, Sisipur says option C, Senapati says option C. Presidency says option C. Tamenglong. Yes, absolutely correct, children. It's grafting. We have discussed in the last class. Let me just revise. In cutting, we simply cut one segment. It may be root or shoot, and then we directly place into the soil. In case of layering, we do not cut. We simply, if this is a stem, we simply do, without cutting it, we just dip it. We fold it and dip it because it is flexible, of course. We dip it into the this soil, and then it comes out, and the whole shoot and the roots develop from it. In grafting, we take the stem, one upper portion from another plant, the root from another plant, and then we join them. Okay. So that is grafting. Tissue culture is absolutely another method in which we take a tissue scrap and then we develop into the growth medium in the laboratory. So that's another method, okay? Yes, very good. I think most of you got 5 out of 5. That's really good, okay? So see, these are the answers we have just discussed. Let's start. Okay, this was the summary from the last class. Asexual reproduction is a kind of reproduction with no fusion of gametes because there is only one parent, no gametes, nothing like that. Uniparental process this is. It is right to mention that in asexually reproduced reproduction, no dead and decaying organisms are left behind. Why? Because they keep on dividing into another organism. Nothing is being remained. If there is an organism, divides into another. Then it divides into another. So there is no dead and decaying organism remains in them because nobody is actually dying. They are just developing into the another organism. It will inherit the same genes as its parent except for some cases where there is a chance of rare mutation to occur that we have just discussed. For humans, we are not very much successful to do tissue culture. Okay. Ayush, you did not attend the tissue culture class? Okay, I'll just show you that slide again, all of you, all those who have doubt, because Senapati Center has also given the wrong answer for that. Let me just show you the slide again for the tissue culture. Okay. See, in tissue culture, we call it as micropropagation also. We take a sample or scrap from a plant. We just take a scrap from a plant, and when we transfer it into a nutrient medium. Okay. When we transfer it to the nutrient medium, some undifferentiated cells. What are undifferentiated cells? Undifferentiated cells are those cells which have not yet got their function, that they either have to develop into shoot or develop into root. So they are undifferentiated. They are just cells who can develop into any kind of the part of the plant. Fine, that we call as callus. This callus, the small portion of callus is then transferred into another medium which is containing the growth hormones, which we call it as growth medium. Then what we will see that these undifferentiated cells will now get differentiated and develop into the small roots and shoot. We call them as plantlets, very small. Then plants grow through tissue culture. We have what kind of plants that we have grown through tissue culture are orchids, asparagus and chrysanthemum. Is it clear now? All those who have forgotten about tissue culture, is it now clear? Yes? Okay. Fine. So, an enormous number of organisms can be produced by method of asexual reproduction. Now, in today's class, we are going to start with the topic of sexual reproduction, and in today's session, we will be starting with sexual parts of a flower. We are starting in the flowering plants. First, we will start with for the plants, and next class we will do for the humans. Pollination and what is pollination and fertilization, we will see that, and development of a fruit. Okay. Okay, did you know this before, that flower in a plant body, it changes into a fruit. The fruit that we get, it actually comes from a flower. Did you know this before, all of you? I made a video also on that the video was actually about, this is actually true that strawberry has seeds outside its surface. So in that I explained this concept. Okay, that's good if you knew that. Okay. Fine, so let's see how it happens. Fine. So let's start with first, what is exactly sexual reproduction? Sexual reproduction, first thing that you have to remember, that is the foremost thing, is that in sexual reproduction there are two parents involved, male and a female. We will say sexual reproduction when there are two parents involved. Okay? A single parent simply means asexual reproduction. Then second stage of sexual reproduction is that since there are two parents, how they will reproduce? They will reproduce by producing gametes. What are gametes? Gametes are the cells which are containing the information. The male gamete will be containing the information from the male. The female gamete will be containing the information from the female. For example, if we talk about humans, the male gamete in humans are the sperms. They contain the information from the father component. Like they contain the genetic information from the father, and the ovum or the egg is the female gamete which contains the genetic information from the mother. Then the third very important step of sexual reproduction is fertilization. That is, fertilization is the fusion of these male and the female gametes. And very important part in sexual reproduction, there is genetic variation in progeny. Why? Because there are two parents involved. They will be having two kinds of genetic information, so that will depend from which type of information you are getting from your father, which type of information you are getting from the mother. So there is definitely chance of variation. Okay? Should I go ahead, or you people are writing? Okay. Fine. In plants, sexual reproduction depends upon the process of pollination. Okay? While asexual reproduction is independent of this. What is pollination? I'll explain to you guys. Why exactly like flowers are important? Flowers are it's not just that they they're looking beautiful and they are very smelly, but why they're important for a plant? You must have wondered, like, why actually plants have flowers? Because flowers are the most showiest, like they're the show off. The plant's show off structure is the flower, and they're the most strongly scented. Of course, you must have seen the rose, and you must have smelled the rose, how amazingly it smells, with their bright colored fragrances and interesting shapes and sizes. Actually, flower wants to attract the pollinating agents like insects, birds, animals to serve their pollination needs. We will discuss what is pollination, but right now just understand that in case of plants, the sexual reproduction, before the sexual reproduction, there is a very important step which we call as pollination. And pollination can only happen with the help of some agents. There are some agents which help in this process of pollination, which are insects, birds and animals. And why would they do it? Because they will, in response, because they basically get attracted to the beautiful flowers of the plants. Okay. Some of the plants also use agents like water and wind, or they do self-pollination. I'll explain you what is pollination. Are you writing this, or should we go ahead? We can go ahead. Okay, writing. Fine, right. Presidency saying, okay. All of you write, just tell me when you're done. Shivang, when you're done, just raise your hands, and others, please tell me when you're done. Okay, people are done already. Sisipur done. Shillong done. Temenglong, Presidency, Kohima, Senapati Center, are you all done? Children, should we go ahead? Okay. Okay, let's see this. The main characteristic of sexual reproduction is involvement of one individual, involvement of one cell, fertilization of gametes or absence of gametes. Okay. Okay. Sisipur and Senapati, your answer is awaited. Rest of them have given their answers. Okay. Yes, children, absolutely correct. Option C, that is fertilization of gametes. Very good. Now let's understand this. I'll show you what are the different parts of the flower. Okay. See, there are 4 different parts. The text, what I'm going to tell, is going to come on the next slide, so you can copy it that time. Right now, just listen to me, all of you. Listen right now, whatever I'm telling you is going to be written on the next slide, so you can copy that. Right now, just focus on the screen. Okay? There are 4 different parts of the flower. Fine. The green colored part, if you can see, this is the green colored part. These are known as the sepals. Okay? Their function is to protect the developing bud. If you have seen the flower which has not blossomed yet, the bud is actually surrounded by the green colored leaves. These are not actually the leaves. These are the parts of a flower which we call as the sepal. So this is the sepal which protects the bud. Okay? This stalk-like structure is called receptacle. Receptacle, simply word, it's an English word which is recepting something. It is holding the stalk by which a flower is born. Okay, on which a flower is we bear the flower on which that stalk is called the receptacle. Fine. Then this beautiful color, this colorful part of the flower is called petals. Okay, these are called the petals. These colorful part of the flower is known as the petals. Now, these sepals and petals, function. The petals' main function is to attract the pollinating agent. Now, what exactly is pollination? See, a flower has this male reproductive part and a female reproductive part. There are some flowers which have both these male and female part in the same flower only. In this, if you can see this flower, this is a very common flower you must have seen, hibiscus. This is having the male and the female part, both of them in the same flower only. But in some flower you may only find the female reproductive part, in some part you may find only the male reproductive part. Let's see the male reproductive part. Can you see this bilobed stalk? This bilobed stalk, this is called the anther. Okay, this bilobed stalk, this is called the anther. And this stalk on which anther is present, this stalk is known as, this we call as the filament. These two makes the male reproductive part which we call as stamen. Okay, I'll repeat myself. There are 2 parts, the male reproductive part and the female reproductive part. The stamens are the male reproductive part. Fine, the stamen consists of 2 things, the anther, which is this bilobed structure, and the filament which is bearing this anther, that stalk-like structure is called the filament. These anther bear many dot-like structure. If you have seen a flower also, these dot-like structure are called the pollen grains. What are pollen grains? Pollen grains are the male gametes of the flower. Male gametes, they are carrying the genetic information of the male reproductive part, and these pollen grains are present on this anther. Many of these pollen grains are actually present on this anther. Okay, then let's see the female reproductive part. Female reproductive part is called the carpel. Okay, this is the female reproductive. Okay, just go by the writing because I'm writing it with the mouse. Fine, this is the female reproductive part. It consists of 3 things. Can you see this structure? This structure is called as the stigma, which is it's a cushion-like structure. Fine, and this vertically placed stalk is called as the style, and this basal broad portion is called the ovary. Okay, The function of stigma is to bear the pollen grains, and ovary is containing the female gamete, which is called as the ovum or the egg. What exactly happens in pollination is these pollen grains, see, in sexual reproduction, the purpose is fertilization. What is fertilization? That is, the male gamete and the female gamete have to fuse. They have to come in contact, they need to fuse, and they need to form the future plant, the seed. Fine. But since flower is not motile, it is just located its position, how will they do it? How the male and the female gamete are going to meet? So they cannot do it on, they cannot just do them on themselves. They cannot do it on themselves because they need someone for their pollen grains to reach this ovum. And this process of transferring of pollen grains from anther to stigma, all of you focus on the screen, this transfer of pollen grains from anther to stigma, this is called as pollination. Is it clear to all of you? What is pollination? Pollination is transfer of pollen grains from anther to the stigma. Okay? We said that they need agents for this, which are called as pollination agents. How does that happen? Either it can, see, pollen grains are very sticky and they are very light, okay? You cannot just if you just take a flower and you will see the yellow dots, very yellow dots, those are actually pollen grains. You can see them very commonly. You take any flower and you might find the pollen grains on them. Fine, of course, you need to see the stamen in them. The flower must be containing the stamen. Okay. Now these pollen grains will not transfer on their own, they need some agent. Either it can happen through wind, okay, there's wind blowing, so wind just took pollen grains from anther to stigma. Now, or in aquatic plant, it can help with the help of water. Apart from this, what are the different organisms which can help in pollination are insects. What happens? An insect sat on this anther. Okay. Why they come? They come for the nectar. They come for the nectar. They get nectar. Now say they sat over the anther. The pollen grains, I said they are very sticky. They stick to their feet. When they sat over here, now they'll sit over here. So they'll simply transfer the pollen grains from anther to stigma. Similarly, birds can do that, or any other animal can do that. So these are known as the pollinating agents. Is it clear to all of you? Yes. Is it clear to all of you? Any other doubt? I'll repeat it. If there's any doubt, please ask me. I'll repeat it. I've just explained you the entire process, and then further slides we will just write what is written. Okay, function of receptacle, it do not have any function in fertilization. Okay, it does not have any function in the reproduction process. Its main function is to bear the flower. Okay, otherwise the flower will not be, how the flower will be attached to the part of the stem. You can say the extension of the stem to which a flower is born, that is known as the receptacle, that's it. Okay, it does not have any role. Nectar is present over here, okay, from anther. They sit on anther and stigma, they collect the nectar from the flower. Okay, they just suck the nectar from the flower. When the insects sit on that, you have seen, what do we call that, bhavra in Hindi, bhavra and jugnu, they all sit on them. They take the nectar from the flower, and the nectar is the rewarding elements of the flower. We say that the rewarding element. Plant has to reward the insect indirectly. Why would the insect sit on them? Why would they sit? They need to get something. No? Otherwise, they are not just coming for pollination. It's a give and take relationship. They get the nectar, flower reward them with the nectar, and in turn they do the pollination for them. Okay? It's a plant produce which is present on this anther and this stigma. Is it clear to all of you? Any other doubt, children? No, it cannot present inside the ovary. See, ovary over here, we have shown you a structure. Ovary is properly enclosed. An insect cannot be present inside the ovary. Ovary is absolutely enclosed structure. It cannot just let anybody to come inside. Ovary is holding the ovule, the egg. You know, egg is the female gamete. Why the insect can go inside the ovary? See, this is a closed structure. I've just showing this is absolutely the closed structure. Okay, or insect cannot go inside this. This is absolutely closed. So no insect can go within it. Yes. Yes, absolutely correct, Shalom. Pedicel, and that's the same thing. Actually, what happens is, when the pollen grains reach here, okay, the pollen grains reach here, they form a pollen tube that goes along this style and it reaches the ovule. This is the ovule. The pollen grains from here, from the stigma, when they reach the stigma, they form a pollen tube, like it's a tube which goes through this style like this, and these pollen grains then reaches the ovule. Fine. Is it clear, children? Is it clear to all of you? Any other doubt you can ask, otherwise we are going to go ahead. Clear, I think. Okay. Okay. So, let's see. Now we'll just see what we have just learned. A flower is actually a modified shoot. The flower is the reproductive part of a plant. The stamen is the male reproductive part, and carpel, the another name for carpel is the pistil. Okay, if you hear the word pistil, it is the same thing, so don't get confused. So, carpel or pistil is the female reproductive part of the flower. All those who want to write, just write quickly and just tell me when you people are done. Okay? Done? Should I just change the slide? Yes, all of you. Should I change the slide? Saint Joseph came so late. Okay. So this is what we have just discussed the flower structure. It has four main parts. That is the green part, the sepals, the red colored part, the beautiful colored part, that is called the petals. The stamen is the male reproductive part, and the carpel is the female reproductive part. The outermost part of the flower has the green leafy structure known as the sepals. They help to protect the unopened bud. And the second part is petals, which is usually bright and colored. Allele we will discuss when we will start the topic of heredity and evolution. Okay, alleles are basically when two similar, the pair of genes, okay, those are called the alleles. When we will study the heredity and evolution, I'll tell you in detail. Similar pair of genes basically are called as the alleles. Is it done, children? St. Joseph, very quick, where were you? Why you were not replying? Okay. Are you done now? Okay, Shillong done. St. Joseph done. Presidency done. Kohima done. Sisipur. I think you people are done. Okay. The third part contains the male reproductive structure and is known as the stamen. It contains anther and filament. And the innermost part in the flower is the female reproductive part, which is known as the carpel. It has stigma, style, and ovary. Okay, is it done? Shillong didn't ask me the break today. Enjoying this topic? All of you didn't ask for the break today. Either you liking this topic too much or too engrossed in writing. Fine, you can have your break after writing this. Just tell me when you're done writing. Are you people done writing? Fine, okay. You can have your break. Okay, are you people back? Sorry for the delay. Are you all there now? Okay, so as I told you that a flower, let's just come back what we were doing. Okay, as I told you, flower can be unisexual or bisexual. What do I mean by unisexual? That means when it contains either a stamen or a stigma. For example, papaya or watermelon, they'll either contain a male reproductive part or they contain a female reproductive part. Such a flower is known as unisexual flower. Okay. Then a bisexual flower, just the previous example that we saw, that is hibiscus. Okay, hibiscus in which both the reproductive parts are present within the same flower. Both stamen and carpels are present within the same flower. Such flowers are known as bisexual flowers, and examples are hibiscus and mustard. Okay. Fine. So we've just discussed unisexual and bisexual flowers. Example for unisexual, remember papaya or watermelon, and for bisexual, remember hibiscus and mustard. Fine? You want to write this? Okay, then write quickly. Okay. Just tell me when you're done so we can change the slide. Should I change it now, children? Okay, done for Shillong. Others, please tell me. Are you in back? I'm only receiving responses from Shillong and Presidency. Okay, Presidency, you're done. Kohima, Sisipur, Senapati, St. Joseph. Where are you people? Why are you not replying? Okay, are you people done? I think you people are done. Let's go ahead. Fine, so let's see the male gametophyte, that is the pollen grain. It is yellowish powder-like substance. If you just touch a flower, that yellow substance, it will basically stick in it's very sticky also. Okay, this male gametophyte develops and reaches the maturity in an immature anther. Okay, its development takes place within the anther, and pollen grains are found in the anther, which is at the end of the stamen, the long filament that supports the anther. Okay, this we have discussed already. Filament is the stalk which holds the anther, and anther bears these male gametophyte, that is the pollen grains, which are yellow in color. They are sticky, they are powder-like. If you just take a hibiscus flower and you see that yellowish substance, if you touch it, it will simply stick to your hands. These are the pollen grains. Let's go ahead or writing. Okay, Temenglong. Okay, I'm going ahead. I think we will done. Okay, now let's see the female gametophyte. Just see this diagram. This is the basal portion, that is the ovary. It is the basal enclosed part of the carpel which contains ovules. These are the ovules. And each ovule has an egg. This is the broad basal portion is the, This broad basal portion is the ovary, and these are the ovules. These are the ovules, and each ovule contains the egg. This stalk-like this structure which contains ovary to stigma. This portion is called the style, and this portion stigma, which is receptacle, which is receptive for the pollen grains. This structure is called the stigma. Can you see? This is actually the Can you see? This is the pollen grain. And I told you when pollen grain reaches, it forms a pollen tube. So this structure is the pollen tube. And it is reaching this ovule. This is pollen tube, pollen grain, which reaches the stigma. After reaching the stigma, what is the purpose actually going to the stigma? Its function is to reach this pollen ovule. So basically, it forms a pollen tube like this. This is the pollen tube being formed, which goes along the style. Then it goes through the ovary, and then it enters the ovule, and it reaches the egg. Can we go ahead? Okay. Just tell me when you people are done writing. Yeah, sure. Okay, this is the female reproductive structure. This basal portion, this broad basal portion is the ovary, and this stalk-like structure, this middle elongated part is which connects this ovary to the stigma is called the style. This is the style. Okay, and then this portion, this is this which receives the pollen grain. This part of carpel is called the stigma, through which style arises, which reaches to the ovary. Ovary contains these ovules, and each ovule contains the egg. After that, I was telling you that when pollen grain reaches from anther to stigma, they have to go through this ovule. So basically, they form this pollen tube. This pollen tube goes along the style, reaches the ovary, and then enters and reaches the ovule to meet the egg. Is it clear, Kohima Center, now? Sisipur, Senapati, St. Joseph, no response is coming from you people. Okay, let's go ahead. I think it is done. Fine. Now let's see pollination. We have just discussed that. Pollination is the transfer of pollen from a male part of a plant to a female part of a plant, enabling later fertilization and the production of seeds, most often by animal or by wind. Pollination is nothing but the transfer of pollen grain from anther, that is the male part of the plant, to the stigma, that is the female part of the plant, that which later on help in the process of fertilization, leading to the formation of seeds, and most often the pollinating agents are animals or the wind. We have seen the pollinating agents, either they'll be insects, animal, or they may be water or wind. Most commonly it is by some animal or the wind. Then pollination can be of two types. Self-pollination, when the transfer of pollen grains occur within the same flower. For example, if we're talking about hibiscus, both stamen and pistil carpel is present in the same flower. So over there, self-pollination is absolutely possible, that there will be transfer of pollen grain from anther to the stigma of the same flower. But what happens if a flower is unisexual? It has only either the male part or the female part. So it needs the pollen grain from some other plant. That is why such type of pollination, when the transfer of pollen grain take place from one plant to another, such type of pollination is known as the cross pollination. Again, we have seen after the pollen grain has landed on the stigma, it develops a pollen tube that we have just seen in the previous slide, and it grows down the style until it reaches the ovary. Is it clear to all of you? Okay, let me repeat it again. See, pollination is of two types, self-pollination and cross-pollination. Let us first understand what is pollination. Pollination is transfer of pollen grains from the male part, that is the stamen, to the female part, that is the carpel. Okay, if I put it in simple words, there is transfer of pollen grain from anther to the stigma. Okay, that is simply pollination. It further leads to fertilization and forms the seed. It is most oftenly done by animals, that is the agent. I told you, for example, if animal, we are talking about an insect. It sits on the anther, the pollen grains will stick to its feet. And if later on sits on the stigma, the pollen grains will be transferred from anther to the stigma. Okay. Yes. Yes, another plant. Yes, that is also pollination. Absolutely correct. Now, pollination can be of two types, self-pollination and cross-pollination. In self-pollination, the transfer of pollen grains will be within the same flower. For example, hibiscus. It is having both stamens and carpel in the same flower. So, there will be transfer of pollen grain from anther of same hibiscus flower to the stigma of the same hibiscus flower. So, this is self-pollination happening within the same flower. In cross-pollination, there is transfer of pollen grain from one flower to another. Now, in that there is a possibility it is happening within the same plant. For example, there is a plant of rose. Okay, so there is transfer of pollen grain from within the same plant only. There is transfer of pollen grain from anther of one rose to the stigma of another rose. Or there is also a possibility there is transfer of pollen grain from anther of one rose in a plant to the rose of another plant. Basically, when it is outside, it is not happening within the same flower, then it is cross-pollination. Same plant or not, if it is not happening within the same flower, we will call it as cross-pollination. Is it clear, Kohima, now? Shillong, your question is answered or not? Kohima, is it clear? Okay, Shillong, is your question answered or is there any doubt? I think you're typing something. Can we go to the next slide? Sisipur, where are you people? Senapati? No. Within the same plant, but the flower is different, then it will be cross-pollination. Okay, good, Sisipur. Shillong, if it is happening in between two flowers of the same plant, it's cross-pollination. If it is happening between two flowers of different plants, cross-pollination. We will say self-pollination only and only if there is transfer of pollen grain within the same flower. And usually that will be seen in only bisexual flowers. Is it clear? If the self-pollination is transferred within the same plant, no, it is not self-pollination. Self-pollination will only be called when it is happening within the same flower. If there are two flowers involved, maybe of the same plant, maybe of different plants, we will simply call it as cross-pollination. Okay, is it clear to all of you? Should we go ahead now? I think it's done. Let's go ahead. So this is pollination, transfer of pollen grain from anther to stigma. Self-pollination, transfer of pollen grain within a flower. Cross-pollination, transfer of pollen grain from one flower to another, maybe of the same plant, maybe of the different plant. I think you have written this. You've written this already, right? I'm going ahead. Now, so this is showing, see, this is cross-pollination, where there two flowers are involved. Okay, this is the transfer of pollen grain from anther of one flower to the another flower. But if it is happening within the same flower itself, like in hibiscus, there is transfer of pollen grain from anther to stigma within the same flower, then we call it as self-pollination. Can you see this? In this, they have also shown the self-pollination. When it is happening within the same flower, then we call it as self-pollination. In between the two flowers, cross-pollination. Okay. Next, after pollination, the next step is fertilization. What is fertilization? There is fusion of male and female gametes, that is the pollen grain. When reaches to the ovule, it fuses, it produces the male gamete which fuses with the egg, that is the female gamete, and it results in the formation of a structure called as zygote. Zygote is actually the future plant which will eventually convert into the seed. And you know, seed is the future plant which will develop into the new plant. So, it can be external and internal. We mean, for example, in human beings, it is happening within the inside body of a female. That is why such fertilization is called as internal fertilization. Internal fertilization means when the fertilization is taking place within the body of a female. When it is taking place outside the body, for example, if we talk about an aquatic organism, they release their gametes outside in the water. So, fertilization is taking place in the water. But if it is taking place within the body of a female, such fertilization is called as internal. When it is taking place outside the female's body, then we call it as external fertilization. Should we go ahead? Should we go ahead, children? Okay. So, fertilization process, sperm cells from the pollen grains then move along the pollen tube. They fuses with the female gamete in the ovum. This is called as fertilization. That is fusion of the male gamete in the pollen grain and the egg in the ovum is known as fertilization, which results in the production of zygote. Zygote is capable of forming new plant. Why? Because zygote divides several times to produce embryo. Zygote divides a lot of time to produce an embryo within the ovule, and ovule develops tough coat and gradually convert into seed. For example, see what exactly is happening. See what is happening. There is pollen grain. Okay. This pollen grain is containing the sperm. The sperm is the male gamete. It fuses with the ovum which contains the egg, that is the female gamete. So, sperm plus ovum will result in the formation of zygote, and this process is called as fertilization. Okay, this process is known as fertilization. This zygote, it divides. For example, if zygote is a single cell, okay, it divides to form embryo. Basically, it divides in multiple cells. It forms multiple cells. Okay, this all is happening within the ovule only. Okay, this is known as embryo. This ovule develops a tough coat. This is ovule. All this is happening within the ovule. This is the tough coat of the ovule, and there are multiple cells inside this. Obviously, they can be seen only microscopically. They are the multiple cells. Now we call this as the seed. When we see a seed, we just see like this. Okay, we simply see like this. But if we see microscopically, we will see a lot of cells in that. It is basically containing your embryo, which will develop into the future plant. Some cell will develop into the roots, some cell will develop into the stem. I just tell you how this happens. This ovule, if you see, when you dip these gram seeds in water, after some time what you will see, if this is your gram seed, okay, this is a gram, just don't go by my drawing. Okay, this is a gram seed. It develops this seedling, this structure. We call this as seedling, and this process is known as germination, the next process that we are going to talk about. Okay, so sperm cells from the pollen grain then move along the pollen tube, fuses with the female gamete in ovum. This is called as fertilization, resulting in the production of zygote capable of forming new plant. Zygote divides several times to produce embryo within the ovule. Then this ovule develops a tough coat and gradually converted into the seed. Have you people written this? Should I go ahead? Should I go ahead, children? Just write this quickly and tell me when you're done. Shillong's done. Kohima, Presidency, Sisipur, Senapati. Are you there? Temenglong, St. Joseph. Are you there? Keep on replying in between. Since I can't see you people, you need to give me replies that you should know that you're there with us. Yes, I'm not changing students. Just tell me when you're done. Wait. Now it will be clearly visible to you people. Done, all of you? Should I go ahead? Sisipur, done? Senapati have not been replying. Are you even there? Temenglong, done writing, children? Presidency? St. Joseph and Senapati are not replying. Why? I think all of you are done. Fine, so see what is happening. All of you focus over here. This is anther and stigma. There is transfer of pollen grains from anther to stigma. This process is known as pollination. Shillong, what's happening? Look at the screen. Lisa is sharing some interesting story, I guess. Lisa, what is the story? I really want to know. Because they seem to be more interested in your story than what I'm teaching, right? Okay, so Sonu is coming and telling me the story. Is it Sonu, right? Lisa is going to tell you a story. You still writing? You want me to go back, Temenglong? Lisa, what is the story? Oh, didn't we discuss this? What did came first, egg or hen? What do you think? No, this is not just a joke. Actually, this is being scientists have been searching about this, and the answer has finally been given. This has been discovered now. The egg has come or the hen. This is being discovered. Like, this is no more a joke anymore. Okay, Temenglaon, just tell me when you're done. Yes, what do you think? What do you think, children? Egg or hen? What came first? Is it the egg or the hen? Yes? Hen. Okay. Okay, Presidency, you were also trying to say that. No, it's not that God created hen. I mean, yeah, that's true. But actually, hen evolved from the previous species. How this is discovered? There's a protein that is found in the egg. Okay. And that is found in the hen. So that is not possible that the egg came first, because that protein is present in the hen. So had the hen is actually giving that protein to the egg. Okay, so this is true that hen came first and the egg came later on. Because there is evolution, egg must have evolved from some other organism. It evolved into the hen. It may be some other organism, then it evolved into the hen. And then, of course, the egg producing process started. So the protein found in the hen is not found in the egg. It's not found in the hen, I'm sorry. That means the hen came first. It's not found in the egg. So that particular protein, which explains this, that the hen came first. Okay, so let's see this process of fertilization, all of you. So pollen grains reaches from anther to stigma. This process is called pollination. They form pollen tube, which goes along with the style. They reaches this ovary, and they form this formation of embryo sac. Okay, the embryo. After fertilization, there is formation of zygote, which then develops into the embryo. Now you have to remember what happens to the other structure. What exactly happens? After this, when the fertilization takes place, the ovary swells up and it develops into a fruit. Okay? And inside the ovule, which is the seed, you can see any fruit. You can see, just imagine mango. So inside that seed of the mango is actually the ovule. Okay, which is containing the embryo, which is the future plant. So that is why if you just sow the seed of the mango in water, soil, and you nourish it, it will develop into the mango tree. First plant and then mango tree. So that the tasty, juicy part of the mango is actually the ovary. Okay, because ovary has swelled up to form the fruit. And then the rest of the structure, in some cases there are multiple seeds, multiple pollen grains, so they fertilize a multiple ovule. That you have to find out. I'll show you the video in the next class about this. Like I've made this video on strawberry, why strawberry has seeds outside its surface. We will see why does that happen. And all these petals, okay, this is a spelling error. Wait. This is petals. Okay. The petals, the sepals, stamen, stigma, everything falls off. Okay? What's happening, Shillong? What's this? What's happening? What you people are doing? Any signature step of some song? I can't recall any song that I missed. What's happening? Signature step of some new song that I missed. Then what? Tell? Okay. Are you all done writing? Should I change? Okay, that's a good thing. I can see you more brightly now. Okay, I'm changing the slide then. Okay, we don't have to read this much, but I'm just going to tell you what is germination. See, after you just see this. This is what is happening. There's a seed, then there is development of root, and from there is development of the shoot. This process, this is the development of a garden pea. See how this is happening. Okay, initially it was just a seed. Okay, just don't go by the terms. You don't have to see that. There is primary root formation, then there is lateral root formation. There is development of the stem, then there is development of the leaves. This is how a development takes place. So this process of germination, this you don't have to write this much. You should just know that what is germination. When after the seed has made to a new location, it basically germinates. It forms the root, it forms the shoot. That process is known as germination. You don't have to go in this much detail. Fine, we don't have to understand in this much detail, like how it develops. You just have to understand that development. So from a seed, that process is called the germination. Okay. Okay. From one hand clockwise circle, and from another hand anti-clockwise, square anti-clockwise. Like seriously. Okay. From one hand if I'm doing clockwise, another hand I have to do this. Simultaneously I have to do it. Okay. Now that's a bit difficult one. You know, I need to practice a lot. Okay, I can't do it. I need to practice too much. Whose idea is this? So other sender Shillong is asking, can you do from one hand you have to do a clockwise thing, this clockwise circle, and from another hand you have to do a square anti-clockwise thing, right, like this, right? So whose idea is this, Shillong? Yes, whose idea is this? Sonu? Only you can bring this up. So how many of you did this? How many who are actually able to do this? None of them. Can you do it? No. Anyone from other centers can do that? Clockwise circle from one hand, anti-clockwise square from another. No one can do it. So that's a fact that you read and you're trying it on others. You can do it, CC-pur. I can't see you. You can so easily say that we have done it, right? I can't do it either. It was easy. You have to do it simultaneously, CC-pur. Alone we can do it, of course. Simultaneously it's not easy. Circles it's easy. Okay? But not the square. Not the square. You must have read it somewhere, no, Shillong? Sonu, you must have read it somewhere. I'm right. You're Sonu, right? Right or wrong? Right, Sonu. Because I know only you can bring such ideas. Yeah, I believe so. Fine, so this topic is over. Okay, so this is just let's see this diagram. This is ovary development. Okay, this was initially bud. It was developing. How it developing into a fruit. Just see, this is very beautiful diagram. Just see, this is cell division happening. This is cell expansion. It is expansion like ovary swell. We just wrote that ovary swell up into a fruit. Like how it is happening. See, It is developing. This ripening, you know ripening when the it actually develops into a fruit. If you know, tomato is a fruit. How many knew that? Tomato is not a vegetable, it's a fruit. You knew about that? Okay. Others, did you know about that? That tomato is a fruit, it's not a vegetable. So it's showing you the development of tomato. Okay, that's good. Kohima, are you there? Presidency, can't see any response from you people. Temenglong? Okay, that's good. Many of you know that. Many people still don't know that tomato is a fruit. So see this ovary development, then it's a fruit, there is cell division, there is cell expansion, and there is development, there is ripening of the fruit. So this is it. The sexual reproduction in flowering plant is done. Okay, and let's see the summary. This is plants are not capable of asexual reproduction because sexual reproduction, they can do only sexual reproduction. Modes of some of the plants can show asexual reproduction also, but higher plants, if we talk about, they show only sexual reproduction. Modes of sexual reproduction include pre-fertilization, that is gameto. This gametogenesis is basically gamete synthesis. Then fertilization, that is fusion of the gametes, and then post-fertilization, that is when embryo develops into the fruit, that is embryogenesis. The flowering plants undergoes the process of pollination, after which fertilization becomes possible, which is followed by germination. Germination is basically development of the roots and stems from this seed. That process is known as germination. Ovule, always remember this comes as a one-word question, that which develops into what. Always remember this thing, that your ovule always develops. Ovule develops into the seed and ovary matures into the fruit. Always remember, never forget this thing. In fact, you can write it in one word in your notebooks also, that ovule just comma develops into the seed and ovary arrow develops into the fruit. Always remember that. It is asked in one word questions quite some time. Fine, so this part of the chapter is completed. If you have any doubts, you can ask in the next class also, or you can ask in the group as well. We will be continuing with the last part of the chapter, that is sexual reproduction in human beings, which is, since it is human beings, it is interesting because it was about plants. I know it is not very easy to relate, but human beings, it's a very interesting topic. Okay, we will discuss it in the next class. Till then, take care. Bye-bye. See you. I'll see you in the next class. Bye-bye all. And all of you come for the classes. Don't miss the class until it is very genuine. And all of you take care of your health and try not to miss the classes. Bye-bye.